Welcome to Whittier. I'm excited to host Mayor Bowser, Chancellor Fairby, and our city leaders today as they announce the 2019 PARCC results. As we prepare for PARCC, this year we challenge our students to take their writing to the next level. Our teachers engage students in the writing process across all content areas. We engaged our teachers in weekly data meetings where we were able to quickly assess students' misconceptions as well as teachers' understanding of the content standards. I am confident through our weekly observations, coaching, and investment in students that we will continue the trend of rapidly accelerating student growth to proficiency and beyond. The actions of our scholars and our educators define the warrior pride. We are proud of our progress towards greatness and the work that has led us to be the school of choice. Now, please help me welcome our friend of Whittier and our community, Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, President. Well, good morning, Whittier Warriors. I am really excited to see you all here, and I want to welcome teachers back from the summer. Let's hear it for our teachers at Whittier and all across DCPS. I know that you had a wonderful, restful summer that you well deserved, and I know you're energized and ready to go for this school year. Tiffany Johnson, our principal, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing it together, a great team here at Whittier. And being ready for our young people. Julie Lawson, who's on my team, and also your PTA president. Let's give her a big round of applause for representing all the parents here at Whittier who are such a big part of the team in making sure that our young people succeed. I want to acknowledge our board member for Ward 4 on the State Board of Education, Frazier O'Leary. Thank you, Frazier, for being here and your support. And I understand that you're supported by your colleagues, Marcus Batchelor from Ward 8 and Jessica Sutter from Ward 6. Please give them a big round of applause. We're joined by our council member here in Ward 4, who you're going to hear from in just a few minutes, and also our at-large council member who leads the council's committee on education, David Grasso. Give David Grasso a big round of applause. And council member, I'll introduce you in just a second. But let me get to the business at hand, and you are also going to hear directly from members of our public education team, including our superintendent of the State Board of Education, Hansel Kang, the chancellor for DC Public Schools, Louis Farabee, and the executive director of the DC Public Charter School Board, Scott Pearson. Give them a round of applause in advance. So we are here today to talk about PARCC. I believe this is our fourth year in a row where we are reporting PARCC results for our students. And we all acknowledge that PARCC is but one assessment of how we measure the progress of our students. And while we know that test scores are not everything, we also believe that data provides an important insight into where we're making progress and where we need to continue to focus. I am pleased to report that this year's results show that our students continue to make improvements across grade levels at both DC Public Schools and DC Public Charter Schools for the fourth year in a row. From 2018 to 2019, the number of students who are on track for college and career readiness grew in both the English language arts from 33.3% to 37.1%, almost a 4% increase. And in math, we saw an increase as well from 29.4% to 30.5%. This means that for the fourth year in a row, we have seen continued steady improvement, meaning more students are performing at higher levels. And we all know that the data also demonstrate that we have a lot more work to do and great opportunities to get that work done. We are here at Whittier celebrating the Whittier Warriors and celebrating that their school, your school, has seen double-digit gains in both math and reading. You increased 17 percentage points in ELA and 11 percentage points in math. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. And moreover, you saw double-digit gains among your African American students, among your Latino students, and among your students with disabilities. Double-digit improvements among all subgroups. And that is fantastic news, Principal, and we know that type of growth doesn't happen by accident. Based on these new results, we're looking to what all of our schools can learn from what you're doing right here at Whittier Elementary. We will also be providing all of our schools with extra supports, going to the schools that need them the most. We know, for example, that the data show some areas for concern in math. And to that end, PARCC will be offering professional development opportunities for math teachers at DCPS and at DC Public Charter Schools. And at DCPS, where our teachers will continue to use the Common Core Aligned Eureka math curriculum, schools will also be taking a more data-driven approach and introducing a new support system for our math teachers. Part of that new system involves providing every DCPS cluster team with a dedicated math manager who will work closely with school-based instructional leaders to better support our math teachers. But we also know that it's not just math where we can do better. The achievement gap is still too wide, and we can build a fairer and more equitable city when we know that our African American and Latino students are achieving at the same levels as their white peers. To better address the root causes of achievement and opportunity gaps in our city, this year we are launching the Connected Schools model at 10 DC public schools. And Connected Schools will integrate academics, health, and social services so that we can focus on youth development along with all of the academic training that you are providing our students. And we know that this all plays a role in their achievement. So before I turn it over to Superintendent Kang, I want to end by thanking all of you, teachers, administrators, support staff, all of the people who got our buildings ready over the summer. Let's give them a big round of applause. We want to thank them in advance, right, Principal, for all the maintenance that they're going to do throughout the year. And I want to, again, thank you for believing in Whittier, spreading the good news about Whittier. See, you know, one thing that I've learned in doing this job is that when we go in the neighborhoods surrounding our schools, there are many people who haven't actually been in a school in a lot of years. They don't have kids at Whittier, but they believe in Whittier and want to support Whittier. So I suggest to you that you find a way to spread the good news about this school. Not only this one, but the one that we're going to open across the street at the end of the week, Ida B. Wells Middle School. And then talk to them about the great opportunities that they will have at Coolidge in the health sciences and for early college. And so that they know right in their own neighborhood, they're going to have a fantastic education. Can you help me with that? Because if you can help me with that, we're going to continue to build a strong Whittier. And I know there is a outstanding supporter of Whittier in this entire system of schools in Ward 4, and that's our council member, Brandon Todd. Thank you, council member.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And I want to thank Mayor Bowser and the public education team for the District of Columbia for coming to Whittier Education Campus to celebrate our 2019 PARCC scores. And like everyone in this room, I am just overjoyed at the progress that's being made at Whittier Education Campus. And I know that it is a direct result of all of the men and women sitting here in these beautiful burgundy and gold t-shirts, the teachers and the staff at Whittier. Let's give them a big round of applause. And I want to thank our Ward 4 State Board of Education representative, Dr. Fraser O'Leary, who I know goes down to the state board and fights for Ward 4 schools every single day, and his colleagues from the State Board of Education who were noted by Mayor Bowser. I want to thank my colleague, at-large Councilmember David Grasso, for being here today to show his support to schools across the city. But I'm just really thrilled on behalf of the residents of Ward 4 and all of our public schools, including public charter schools and our traditional schools, at the gains that we're seeing. But as the mayor said, we're making a tremendous amount of progress, but we know that there is still work to be done. But one thing I know for sure is that double-digit gains in two areas is nothing to sneeze at. And I know that you will continue to be laser-focused in supporting our students who attend Whittier, who will go to Ida B. Wells, who will go to Calvin Coolidge, and who will go to a fantastic college or trade school and take the skills that you have imparted upon them and become productive citizens of our city and certainly of our country. But you continue to have a big supporter in Brandon Todd, and we will continue to make sure that you have all of the tools and resources that you need to make our schools productive. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to everybody who has a hand in public education. And I will now bring up the Superintendent, Kang, who will provide additional remarks.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Todd, and thank you to the mayor for her incredible leadership that is a major driver behind, of course, the gains that we've made, in addition to the hard work of our students and educators across the city. So I'm pleased to share a little bit more context on the state-level results that we are sharing here today. In particular, what we know is that since 2015, we actually have thousands more students who are on track to graduate ready for college and careers across both DCPS and our DC public charter schools because of the consistent, steady gains that we are making every single year. And when we look in particular at our results since last year, we are excited to see that major groups of students have seen improvements every year since 2015, and we're particularly excited to highlight the results of our Latino and Hispanic students. We've seen really strong progress since last year in high school across both subjects, which is great to see, and we are also making progress with students who are at risk, students with disabilities, and English learners, although we know we still have a long way to go to support all of our students in meeting their fullest potential. So in particular, we wanted to highlight the improvement we have seen for Hispanic and Latino students that outpaces the overall improvements that the state has been making. Our Latino students have seen especially large gains, improving by more than 15 points in English language arts and more than 10 points in math in the percentage of students who are college and career ready. Our African American students have also made strong gains since 2015, increasing nearly 11 points in English language arts and nearly 6 points in mathematics. So we're proud to see those gains for our African American students as well. And as the mayor shared, when we look in particular at the results since last year, we see gains of nearly 4 points in English language arts and more than a point in mathematics across our city. And when we look more deeply at the results across grade spans, in English language arts, we see improvement for our elementary and middle school students who've gained by more than 3.5 points, and our high school students in particular who've gained by more than 4 points since last year. When we look at the same analysis for math, we see that in grades 3 to 8, we've increased by just over a point in mathematics, but in high school math, we've increased nearly 5 points, which is an area that has been a continued area of challenge in the past and where we haven't seen quite as much growth. So it's really exciting to see those gains over the past year, and our high school students and educators have a lot in particular to be proud of. When we look at then the results for specific student groups, we see gains across our students who are at risk, our students who are English learners, and in particular our students with disabilities. We know we still have large gaps that we need to address for these students, but we are proud to see the gains that our students are making. And then when we look at our results across all racial and ethnic groups, we see strong gains across the board in English language arts, and we see gains in particular for our African American students and our Latino students in math in particular. And so one of the reasons we believe so deeply in this data and these results and want our students, our families, and our educators to have access to this rich and meaningful data is because this assessment in particular asks our students to show what they know when it comes to real-world skills like critical thinking and problem solving. It was exciting to hear the Principal Johnson speak just briefly about the great work this school has done around writing and writing across subject areas. We know it's those kinds of real-world skills that will prepare our students for what comes after high school, whether that is a job or it is a 2-year or 4-year school that they are going on to. And so PARCC asks our students to think critically in a way that is much greater than our past assessments did. When you look at this example 6th grade math question, it asks students not just to solve an equation, but it actually shows 2 different ways that 2 hypothetical students could solve an equation. And then it asks the student to explain how the diagram that one student might use relates to the written expression that another student might use. And we know that for our students to answer this question well, it takes deep understanding of what is going on and the ability to articulate their thinking as well. And then the 7th grade PARCC ELA question asks students to read passages from 2 real-world texts, from The Count of Monte Cristo and A Scene from Blessings, and then to describe the similarities and differences in how the author develops theme in each of those texts. And you can see this is not an easy question to get right, but a student who can do this in 7th grade is going to be prepared by the time they graduate from high school to succeed in that first-year writing class in college, whether that's a 2-year or a 4-year school. And so we want our families to have access to this information, and so families should know that schools this week are receiving hard copies of their individual student score reports to send home to families, and families should reach out to their school if they don't receive those soon. Schools also have electronic access, and all of the information that we just shared and more is live on our website now for folks who want to dig into the statewide results as well as LEA school and subgroup level results across our city. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Chancellor Lewis Farabee to talk more about DC Public Schools.
Good morning, Whittier.
Good morning.
As the Chief Champion for the District of Columbia Public Schools, I am thrilled and honored to be before you today to share the results for the District of Columbia Public Schools from this past school year. But want to begin with gratitude and appreciation and thanking our mayor for her leadership. Would not be possible without the supports that we've received to increase not only the outcomes academically, but also socially and emotionally for the students in the District of Columbia Public Schools. Also, thank you, Superintendent King, and also my colleague, the Executive Director for the Public Charter Schools, and Director Pearson. We're excited. Not only are we experiencing progress year over year, but we continue to see gains in English language arts and math across all 8 wards. We're really excited of the accomplishments here with the Whittier Warriors. So again, shout out to you for your double-digit gains. Let's give them another round of applause. I'm also pleased to report that the District of Columbia Public Schools continue to lead the state in progress year over year. Most recently, in this past assessment of PARCC, DCPS has realized a 4th consecutive year of gains in student achievement in both math and ELA, so much to celebrate there. We now can document and note gains over the last 4 years in English language arts of almost 15 percentage points, and then in math, 11.5. Let's celebrate that. So we have more students that are not only proficient, but we also have more students that are scoring at level 4 and level 5. We're also pleased that we've increased proficiency in English language arts to 39.9%, and then also in math at 32.4%. Over this last school year, our gains in English language arts represent an increase of almost 5 percentage points, and then in math represents an increase of almost 2 percentage points. So again, much to celebrate there, while also reducing the number of students that are level 1 and level 2. As we look ahead and we look across the district, we also see that we continue to see significant gains in English language arts. we saw increases across all grade levels from grade 3 into high school. More specifically, we're excited that we saw a double-digit gain in 8th grade, which is significant as we think about supporting our students in their middle grades as they transition into high school with the prerequisite skills for rigorous courses and preparing for college and career. As we look across the district in math, we also see similar progress across all of our grade levels. We're really excited that in 4th grade we saw an increase of 4.8 percentage points. And we also continue to see, as Superintendent Kane represented earlier, significant gains at our high school level. So we have something again to build upon, ensuring that our students are college and career ready. As we look ahead across all of our subgroups, we see continued improvement in English language arts. You can see all of our subgroups saw improvements in the results year over year. I also want to call out our students with disabilities, students that are at risk, significant gains, also our Black African American students and our Latino students as well. As we look across the district and we look at our math results, we see similar gains in almost every subgroup that we're really proud of. And we know that we'll continue to support students, particularly in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 in middle grade years to get more progress in preparing our students for high school courses in mathematics. So we look at our progress across the district. We have 38, that's right, 38 schools that had a 2 percentage point increase or higher. So a couple schools to note. You can see we've got Bancroft Elementary School in Ward 1. We have Garrison Elementary School in Ward 2. We have Noyes Elementary School in Ward 5. Ron Brown Preparatory High School in Ward 7. And Kramer Middle School in Ward 8. So again, significant progress across all 8 wards. We had 19 schools that had double-digit gains in English language arts. So really proud there. You can see several schools represented. Yes, clap that up. So you see schools like Washington Met. You see Langland Elementary School, Hart Middle School, and last but not least, you see Whittier Education Campus. Really excited. And then just to highlight, Whittier topped us out with 17 percentage point increase. And it's amazing. Amazing. We see several schools also with similar gains in math at double digits. So we had 16 schools with double-digit gains in math. Again, we see several schools represented, such as Langdon and Madame Bowen, Randall Highlands Elementary School, and again, continue to see schools across the district improving their results in math, and a lot to learn from schools that are experiencing success in English language arts and math. So again, proud of all of our schools and the progress that we're seeing across all 8 wards. So as we think about where we are today, again, I want to not only recognize your hard work, as the mayor highlighted previously, excellence is not achieved by chance or circumstance. It is very intentional, it's very strategic, and it represents the hard work of our students and our families and the commitment of our staff. And so we just want to recognize all the educators, again, in the room from the District of Columbia Public Schools, our core leadership team, and again, also thank you, Mayor, for your support and your leadership. With that, I'll turn it over to Director Pearson, who will provide an update on our public charter schools.
Good morning. Good afternoon, excuse me. Thank you, Chancellor Farabee. And it's been said a few times, but it's worth saying again. We've given the PARCC exam for 5 years, so we've had 4 years where we can measure comparisons from one year to another. And in all 4 years, we've seen gains every year at both DCPS and charter schools. So that's quite remarkable. And I would just say that, when you look across the country, to have a school system that is roughly equally balanced between public charter schools and traditional public schools, and to see both growing every single year is quite special and quite extraordinary. Mm-hmm. So these results are good news for the students and their families. It says that the investments that the city is making and the practices that teachers and school leaders are implementing are getting positive outcomes for students. If we look historically, we see that this is the 13th year in a row that public charter students have steadily improved. The blue on the left are results on the old test, the DC CAS, and then we switch to the PARCC, and we show both the percentage of students performing proficient or above level 4 in the green, as well as performing at 3 and above, which is more closely comparable to the old DC CAS. And we see in every year, on every test, we've seen gains every single year. And that's what progress looks like. In a large public education system, you do not see doubling overnight. You see steady progress. That's what shows that this is working. Public charter schools offer families diverse quality options that serve all students. And we are pleased that both in English and math, we saw gains in almost every subgroup. So English language arts up 2.7 with gains in every subgroup other than English language learners, and math up 0.3% with gains in almost all subgroup other than whites and 2 or more races. We always show this slide, which compares public charter school performance with the state average. And what we see is that in this year, public charter schools are outperforming the state with at-risk students and African American students, and underperforming the state with English language learners, Hispanic students, and students with disabilities, as well as white students. So this shows that both sectors have a lot to learn from each other, and we're looking forward to our partnership with DCPS to help ensure that schools across the city get better and learn from each other. We have dozens of schools that saw improvements in their results. These are the schools that saw the largest gains across both sectors. Achievement Prep, Waller Place Elementary, Center City Congress Heights, DC Prep Benning, Eagle Academy Congress Heights, Eagle Academy Fair Lawn, Friendship Southeast, and Sella. I would just note, yeah, it's worth a round of applause. And I would note that 5 of those 7 schools are in Ward 7 and 8. Our top performing and most improved high schools, our top performing high schools were Basis and Washington Latin, and our most improved high schools were KIPP DC College Prep, which saw almost double-digit gains across both subjects, and Paul International School, which is just down the street from us here. And then I'll close out with our top performing public charter schools in both English and math, grades 3 through 8. The top performing schools in English are Basis, Latin, DC International, Inspired Teaching, KIPP Promise, Washington U Ying, Latin America Montessori Bilingual, DC Prep Edgewood Middle, Two Rivers 4th Street, and DC Prep Benning Middle. And I would just note that these schools are from across the city, representing almost every ward. And similarly in math, we see representation in many wards of the city, with 4 KIPP DC schools leading the pack in math, Basis, Washington U Ying, Sella, and 3 DC Prep schools, Edgewood Middle, Benning Elementary, and Edgewood Elementary. So let's give those schools a round of applause. And finally, I would just like to thank my colleagues, starting with Mayor Bowser. I have worked in other states around the country. I know Chancellor Farabee and Superintendent Kang have as well. I would say we are all agreed that we have never worked in a jurisdiction that is so supportive of public schools, that provides us with the funding, the resources, and the support. And so, Mayor Bowser and the City Council, we thank you very much for that.
Thank you. So those are the data, And I think that we will have these presentations available for your review and further inspection. And we are available to answer press questions. Questions? Yes, Martin.
Indeed, and you mentioned it briefly in your remarks, the achievement gap is still significant. What are the efforts that you guys are making moving forward citywide to kind of close down on that achievement gap?
Sure. I talked a little bit in my remarks about the math investments that we are making, and I'm going to ask Superintendent Kang to talk a little bit more about that. And I also talked about what we are doing to support students and families outside of the classroom. And we're building on the community schools approach. We know frequently, Martin, that the education achievement gap mirrors the opportunity gap that families experience all across our nation. So we know that we can help students better achieve when their families have stable housing, when they have access to great health care, when families know how to connect with the social services that are abundant in our city. And we are hopeful that this expanded and more intensive connected schools model will help them do that. I'm going to ask the superintendent to talk a little bit more about math investments.
So I would echo everything the mayor said, and then when it particularly comes to academic supports, again, at OSSI, we are looking closely at the kinds of professional development that we provide for teachers and principals and other instructional leaders across our system, both DCPS and DC Public Charter Schools. We were particularly heartened, as you heard in the presentation, to see the gains for Latino and Hispanic students across our city, and we know that it is possible to support all of our students at a really high level, so we are looking forward to doing that. And then the last thing I would just highlight is the importance of looking at the schools that are already doing this work and leading the way and showing us what is possible, like Whittier, where we are today, and many other schools across our city in both sectors.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I got a quick question, and my question is this. Looking at, I know math scores, science support math scores, but if you have a small school, and say, for an example, that small school's budget would not allow, say, a teaching of something like coding, how does the system look at supporting those small schools whose budgets, and I realize that science is so important. It helps with math scores, and it also helps young people develop a knack for science. But it looks like the science curriculum it's not as rigorous as I would like on the elementary school level.
Let me ask the Chancellor and Director Pearson to talk about our approach to those investments at all schools, regardless of size.
So thank you. I believe, the first important to know that we have a rich, comprehensive staffing model that ensures that there are equitable positions across all schools, regardless of size. And so we want to ensure that schools have access to educators and support that would ensure students are on grade level and receiving appropriate access to curriculum. But I would argue that, while science is also connected to math, there are many other content areas that we think about. I think about math, and I think about the connection to music and other areas. And so I think we will continue to have an integrated support model where our teachers are planning and integrating the curriculum across content areas to uplift math, but not only math, but other areas such as English language arts, social studies, and mathematics. We do see the need to continue to provide more robust professional learning experiences for teachers in math to ensure that the content knowledge and our assessments are aligned to the PARCC assessments and college and career standards.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, Mayor. I want to ask you about graduation rates. The numbers won't be out until November for 2019. But in 2018, it was a 68.8% graduation rate. That's 4.6% drop from the year before. DC has the lowest graduation rate in this region. The facilities in this city have improved remarkably, but the graduation rate hasn't. How do you address that issue to make sure that the graduation rates are meeting the expectations and meeting what you're presenting here as opportunities for students?
Well, first, I think you recognize that last year's we took a number of corrective actions to make sure that the graduation rates reflect the experience of students, and that the attendance requirements of DCPS were followed. And we spent last year also making sure that our opportunities for students to make up work were true to our processes as well. So we expected a true-up of sorts related to attendance, and we may expect another true-up related, what do we call that, where you can make up work? Credit recovery, to make sure that there's integrity in both of those processes. So what's important to us is that the numbers, whatever they are, reflect the student's experience, so that we can be assured that when they graduate and they have a diploma from one of our schools, that it reflects achievement of content knowledge and mastery of programs, and also their abilities to succeed in college or succeed in their job of choice. And so we continue to focus on making sure that all of the folks that you see in this room come to work with the tools that they need, the joy of teaching, and make our students want to come to school so that they have high attendance. And we haven't talked about that, but I'm going to talk about that. And also that what they're getting at school is going to help them achieve in college and life. So we're going to continue to report the experience of students, and those numbers have changed, and they have changed dramatically over the course of 10 years. Yes?
Gains in achievement were higher for our not-at-risk students than our at-risk students. So is there any plans to tinker with the at-risk funding formula to help those schools that are serving a greater percentage of at-risk students?
We have, and tell me where you're from.
I'm Empower K-12.
I'm sorry?
Empower K-12.
Empower K-12. And we have looked at, and the Chancellor and his team are looking at a number of our funding scenarios, including comprehensive staffing, and making sure that all schools and students have what they need. Yes. Please identify yourself.
My name is Sophie Kaplan. I'm a reporter with the Washington Times.
Okay.
I was wondering how in this upcoming school year, schools across the city are going to be more inclusive to the LGBTQ students and families and prevent bullying.
Okay. Chancellor and Director Pearson.
Yeah, so it is something that we talk about this topic oftentimes, and we want to ensure that all of our school administrators are well trained on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Also, in many of our schools, we have support groups for students that are interested in networking with other students in their particular school building. But we have an environment that is rooted in equity and ensuring that all students are honored, regardless of cultural backgrounds, what have you. And so we want to ensure that all of our students, when they're on our campus, know that they are going to be loved, supported, and nurtured. And that's something that I know that all of our school leaders and their staffs have embodied.
And I would just add to that a lot of this starts at the top, and we have a very progressive human rights law. We have leadership from the mayor and the council in terms of ensuring that students are allowed to use the bathroom of their choice, and those laws apply to all of our schools, and we expect them to comply with it.
And I'll just emphasize what you've already heard, and that is we are a city that lives our values, and we have the enforcement mechanisms to make sure that we're living those values. We know that a number of our LGBTQ students have challenges in school and at home. And so we want to make sure that our kind of support for students and families emphasizes to them that there's help if they need it in school or at home. Yes?
That's one dropout question.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
I always like to tell you what I'm going to ask before I ask.
One dropout question?
Yeah, question about dropout. About a month ago, we were up in Montgomery County, and the school board up there has identified a trend in dropouts that they don't like. And when they sat down and examined it, they found it was a lot of ESL students a lot of kids who had to work during the day. They have now moved to looking and bringing back a nighttime high school. They're trying to address different ways of preventing dropouts because the reasons behind those dropouts are not the same ones that we've had traditionally. Migrant families, people who've moved into the area. Is that an area that you've been focusing in on at all, or do you see any trend regionally or here in the district to keep an eye on that, to keep the students in school and to not drop out?
Sure. Well, I would dare say that our neighbors in the county are starting to experience things that we've been experiencing for many decades. Diverse student bodies with different needs. We, for example, we already have alternative high school formats for adults. And if there's something that the others would like to weigh in on, I'll turn to them.
Yeah, I would just echo what the mayor said in terms of the variety of school options we have in both DCPS and DC public charter schools. We have a number of alternative settings and schools that focus on our adult students. We also have the DC Re-Engagement Center, an office within OSSI that the city established in particular to help youth who have disengaged from school re-engage and find the best educational opportunities for them. So I would agree that DC has really been a leader in this field.
Let me go to Perry.
You talked about growth that we've seen in high schools. I think for the mayor or chancellor, is what you're seeing in application schools similar to the trends that you're seeing in neighborhood schools? Can you talk about those two high schools in the city?
Turn to the superintendent and chancellor.
Yeah, so we've seen some significant gains in some of our neighborhood high schools. So we think about high schools like Anacostia, Dunbar, and others that serve our neighborhoods and have done well. But we also have some of our choice application schools that also improve their results. I think what's exciting is across the board, we see some of our largest gains at the high school level in math and English language arts. We're also continuing to see steady progress with our college readiness assessments such as ACT, SAT. We believe that all of these coupled together is a recipe for ensuring that more of our students are not only college and career ready, but also prepared to graduate on time.
On the high school track, I've seen, just looking at the enrollment numbers, it's a very transient group. It looks like Ballou lost a lot of students, but Dunbar gained them when you're looking at this year. Charters, it's small schools, transient population. How much harder does that make it to track how kids are doing? Does it make it harder when you're looking at what's going on at Ballou? As we look at the numbers, should we caveat it with that or no?
Are you asking specifically to DCPS?
DCPS to start with, yes.
Yeah, so we ensure that there is constant communications among schools where we see transient populations and ensuring that students are transitioned well from one school to the next. As part of our connected school models, we have connected school managers that support schools that have had a history of more transient populations, and they will be responsible for brokering resources and supporting families with housing, healthcare supports, transportation supports if needed. And so the way that we've studied that data is ensuring that those schools that do have transient populations have the appropriate support so students have a smooth transition. And also looking at not only those schools at our high school level, but our elementary and middle grades as well as they transition into those high schools.
Okay, Martin.
Can we go off topic?
Yes.
Any updates on the proposed shelter for unaccompanied minors just up the road here? Have you talked to the developer who owns the building? Has anybody from the government or the contractor been in touch with you about where plans stand for that?
Martin, we expect to both enforce our rules and regulations in the city as it relates to unaccompanied minors and shelters in our communities, and we will definitely live our DC values, which do not support warehousing children that have been ripped from their parents. Yes.
Mayor, when I spoke to your colleagues in Northern Virginia, Montgomery County as well, who are also keeping an eye on this exact situation with shelters earmarked for their areas, some of them had brought up the fact that the president himself had made mention of placing shelters in areas that he deemed as sanctuary cities. Do you feel this is payback from this administration, that they're targeting jurisdictions in our region because they don't like the way local officials are doing their jobs?
I can't get behind why we're separating parents from children in the first place. So let me start there. Ripping small children from their parents is not the way to go. We've also had an experience with family shelter. Then we know when facilities are too big to support children. Okay? And I don't have to remind anybody that we don't know where Alicia Rudd is. And her parent was with her. So we are not going to then, after we've closed DC General, we have created safe housing for families who have emergencies in our city. Turn around and recreate an unsafe shelter for children without their parents. And so I'm not going to get into why our federal administration, who is responsible for making sure that our immigration laws are followed, that's not a city responsibility. That's federal government. They have a few jobs. That's one of them. All right? They have a few jobs. That's one of them. And we're going to make sure our rules and regulations are followed, and we're going to make sure that we do everything to make sure our values in the city are respected.
Can you stop this?
Yes, I believe we can. We know that you can't have the kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to the management of young people. You just can't. And we have rules and regulations that limit the number of young people that can be sheltered. And we're very focused on that. Yes?
To combine the two topics, can you speak a little bit about how schools are supporting students of migrant families and immigrant families?
Absolutely. First of all, we don't, you may assume that we know somebody's immigration status, but we may not necessarily know that when they come to school because we're not interested in that. If you live in Washington, D.C., you are entitled to public education and you are entitled to government services. And so we want to make sure that every family knows that. That's I think the most important point. Let me add on two things, and then we're going to move on quickly. Is we're reminding parents you're due at school on Monday. Missing 1 day is bad, 2 days is terrible, 3 days unacceptable. Okay, so let's just everybody show up for school. And part of showing up and being ready for school is getting your vaccinations done. So please help us by having all of things that you're supposed to have in line for the start of school on Monday. And it's also a reminder that we want to support you in talking to your kids about every day counts and the importance about showing up for school every single day. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mayor Bowser. My name is Pete Spronger. For the past 4 years, I've been a proud Whittier parent. I have a question about the middle school transition. It's a welcome transition to move the education campuses in Ward 4 over to Ida Wells Middle School. But what are you doing in the interim to ensure that the students who are still in the education campuses, the 7th and 8th graders this year and the 8th graders next year, will still have adequate resources per student and don't fall through the cracks simply because there are very small class sizes?
I got it. Let me ask the Chancellor to address your question, and thank you for raising it.
Yeah, thank you for raising that question. We, as you highlighted, have several schools that are in that transition. We're excited about the opening of Ida B. Wells, but we also know that we still have students at our middle grades, our education campus, that need supports. And so we are constantly reviewing the enrollment and the class assignments and staff associated with supporting those students in those middle grades. As we've done in the past, if there are areas where we have concern or class size ratios are not at an appropriate level, we will provide additional resources accordingly. We're also thinking about ways in which we can provide integrated supports for students across the grade levels as students are matriculating up in those middle grades and those education campuses.
Okay, that's going to be our last question. I know our teachers have to get back to work, but I'll be available if there are any other questions. Thank you, everybody.